Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. This is hopefully going to be a quick video, and it's going to be a headline video looking at things which give us an idea as to where we are on the timeline of the return of the Lord. Things that indicate that we are moving towards a mark of the beast system, global control, world government, and we're going there fast. And the situation is set up in terms of the pandemic, laying the groundwork for governments to really move ahead with a lot of things that are spoken of in the Bible as being in place in the last days and being part of what the Antichrist does and being part of the 7-year period. And that includes the war of Gog-Magog, where countries from the north come to take a spoil, take the SP off spoil, and you get oil from Israel. So this first one is from Israel365news.com. Israel to supply natural gas to Europe. Of course, we know that Russia's cutting off Europe because many countries in Europe aren't going to pay in rubles because the whole point of that is to put Russia in a tough place so that they get out of Ukraine. Well, that's not occurring. Russia has a lot of power. But if Israel comes in with gas and oil, natural gas, that's Russia's not going to like that. Russia's going to have to do something because that means Europe wouldn't need any Russian oil anymore, and Russia really needs to twist arms in Europe to get them using it again because they make a lot of money there. One of Israel's major concessions when it signed the Camp David peace agreement with Egypt was giving up the Alma oil field in the Sinai Peninsula. Rather than becoming independent, Israel depended on countries like Egypt, Russia, and Azerbaijan for oil. Since then, Israel was known as one of the only countries in the Middle East with no natural resources, but all that changed since 2009 when a large natural gas reserve of 311 billion cubic meters was discovered off the coast of Israel. Today, Israel's gas reserves are so rich that they can supply not only Israel, but Europe as well. That's precisely what happened Wednesday when Israel and the European Union signed a natural gas agreement. The agreement was forged in Cairo as as the gas will flow via Egypt's pipeline. Signing this trilateral agreement in Egypt is Europe's solution for replacing Russian gas. So this is the first I've heard of it. There is now a plan on the table and signed apparently to use natural gas. Russia's going to look at this and say, now Israel has the corner of the gasoline, the energy sector for Europe. And again, Russia is not going to be happy about that. This is a big deal. This is a big piece of news. Could this be the hook in the jaw that brings Russia, the countries of the north, into Israel to attack Israel because they're undercutting their energy profits? Pope Francis, World War III declared. Pope Francis made shocking statements in an interview with editors of European Jesuit publications that were published in Italian Jesuit La Civiltà Cattolica and secular newspaper La Stampa on Tuesday. The world is at war, the pontiff said. For me, today, World War III has been declared. This is something that should give us pause for thought. What is happening to humanity that we have 3 world wars in a century? So he's called it. Many others have called it. It's not a world war like we traditionally think of a world war. It's a new kind of world war where there's proxy wars going on. There's covert wars. There's a center of fighting, but there's other countries participating, just not openly declaring war, because nobody wants to go to a conventional, throwing missiles back and forth. They're waging it by cyber war, by germ warfare. Look at the latest video by Dr. John about monkeypox, that it's mutating faster than a normal disease would in his evolutionary viewpoint. Now, I don't believe in evolution at all. I believe in creation, but the same applies. These things just don't mutate that fast in the natural world. And monkeypox is mutating very fast, which, you guessed it, means that there is a potential, there's certainly an open question as to was this modified? Is this another lab leak? So there's a war waging. These diseases seem to be seem to be getting let out, and we know, related to the four horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation chapter 6, that there will be pestilence. And I think we are indeed seeing this. And I think monkeypox is kind of the second big one. We'll see how that plays out. If Syria continues to let Iranian nuclear weapon planes land, risks losing airport. So Israel is now threatening the whole Syrian airport. A Syrian regime led by Bashar Assad risks losing its international airport if Iran continues to let the site continues to use the site to smuggle advanced weapons to Hezbollah. The head of research at an Israeli Defense Research Center warned, speaking days after an international media report said Israel struck its latest blow against Damascus. International. Tal Berre, head of the research department at Alma Center, told JNS, the message is clear. So long as Iran's air corridor for smuggling weapons to Iran, to Syria and Lebanon continues, the Syrian state will be seen as responsible by the attacking party. Now, Russia's come out and really severely criticized in strongest terms, in the strongest terms that they have ever done, that Israel should not be doing these strikes in Syria. Russia does look like they are getting amped up, they are increasingly becoming unwilling to accept these sorts of strikes and incursions into Syria. Israel keeps doing it. Russia keeps warning. Israel continues to do it. And Russia is getting louder now. And with this new agreement to provide gas, oil supply, let's see, this is dated June 16, 2022, this gas and oil supply article. With that on the table, Russia now has a big excuse, really, to march into Israel and expand their war in the name of protecting Syria, and march down and take the spoil, maybe take over the airfields that Israel has, and expropriate them, if you will, from Israel, so that Israel can't sell its natural gas to Europe, and maybe Russia could resell that. All right, Germany official warns of gas shortages, bankruptcies, massive price hikes that will send shockwaves through the country. It says Mueller paints a bleak picture about the crisis in an interview with a German newspaper, saying it will send shockwaves throughout the country. Banks will ramp up their business with installment loans, and ailing companies will fall into insolvency. So we're heading into a recession. Everybody's saying that now. There's others who are saying, such as Gregory Mannarino, that this is actually the beginning of the financial collapse. It has now effectively started. We are going downhill. This does not get better. This heads towards the Great Depression 2.0, the Greater Depression, and we've seen the start of it. And now you will see insolvencies, bankruptcies, people being desperate, people begging for food, people losing jobs all over, food supply chain, absolute disruption, lack. You won't be able to get the food you want anymore. You won't be able to get the pieces and the parts you want anymore. It's that serious. All right, this is a Zero Hedge article. Chinese banks freeze billions in deposits. Officials use QR health codes to bar protesters. So there's a trouble going on with the local banks, and I spoke about this before. Chinese local banks are freezing deposits. And so there's protesters that, are going there to protest saying, I want my money. And what's happening? Well, they have to get in near the bank by way of a QR code. And the officials are, by way of the QR code, it's flashing red on the phone, which means, they've had some exposure to COVID or something. But it's basically preventing any protesters from actually getting near the bank to protest this. So China is shutting down dissent with QR codes, with the COVID pass, with the Vax Pass, effectively. That's the Chinese version of it, using Vax Pass to limit protesters, to limit dissent, to stop people going where they don't want to go. It had nothing to do with the pandemic anymore. The Vax Pass is now being used to limit the movement of citizens. This is what the mark of the beast will do. This is what's coming. This is an example. They remove the Vax Pass for now, but what happens in the fall when COVID flares up, flu season, when monkeypox comes? They're going to have they've already spent the billions of dollars on it. Don't be fooled. They spent millions of dollars. I don't know how much they spent on it, millions upon millions of dollars, I'm sure, on the Vax Pass application to get it created. They're not just going to use it for a couple of months and throw it away. No, they've got it sitting in their back pocket. They're going to implement it next time, and it's going to stick around longer next time. These things start out small, and then they roll them back, all right, so that they don't get too much public pushback. But now the public is normalized to using it. And then next time, they're going to implement it for longer, and there's going to be less public pushback. And they're going to keep it in as long as the citizens aren't pushing back against the use of it. And so this intrusion, this digital intrusion into our lives, where we're required more and more to be basically managed like cattle, prevented from any sort of dissenting views, and it's happening in Canada, where because the government didn't like the protesters, they froze their bank accounts. It was illegal. There was ongoing review of what happened in Canada with the trucker convoy, the freezing of accounts, and the Emergency Measures Act. But don't worry, that's going to come again. Even if that was deemed illegal, the government will come out with something else to limit dissent. They don't want anybody saying what they're doing is wrong. And it's a scary situation. It's a scary future, but we're headed there very quickly. So thanks, folks, for watching. Be prepared. These things are coming upon us very quickly. We can see them really, really coming into focus now in terms of the mark of the beast, the government control, the World Health Organization, the world government control, and the wars and rumors of wars and the pestilence. All these things are detailed in Revelation 6 by the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Are they riding yet? I'm holding judgment on that. Some people say they have started. I'm not there yet. I think it will be quite literally, shock and awe to a significant level when they do start. And I still believe that there needs to be an Antichrist figure who shows his face before that, at least to the Christians. We should have some indication of that, and the world government. So I think it ramps up yet, and I think the 7-year period probably starts before the end of this year, going into the fall period before Rosh Hashanah this year, where it really kicks off. So be prepared, eyes wide open. Read your Bible. It tells you what's coming. So if you want to be prepared, read your Bible. We'll see you in the next video.